Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I wanted to give you a quick tour of the native borders here at the Carolina Garden House. Now behind me you can see that my bug hotel is under construction. I've actually decided to go ahead and clean it out and make this primarily pine cones and poppy pods. And because I have so many poppy pods from the spring, I think it'll be really dynamic to fill this up with that. Now, of course, adjacent to there, you can see that absolutely gorgeous jet stream oak leaf hydrangea. This is one from First Editions. I really think this is a must grow for absolutely everyone. I can't believe how well it's doing, and it's here at the base of a water oak, and it doesn't really get any supplemental irrigation, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. But let me turn the camera around so that you can see everything that's growing here in my Zone 7 native garden. Well, I feel like I have to make one explanation. I still like to grow a lot of food, non-native food crops, and I like to fill in the gaps with annuals. And in this case, this is a perennial border that has been planted for over a month, and it's totally establishing, but in the meantime, this buckwheat has just kind of filled in the gaps, and this is actually self-sown. I originally sowed this buckwheat on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, and then that cycle finished. It went to seed. We actually mowed it down, and then this is what has filled in for the summer. And I think it's really spectacular. And the thing is, it's not impacting any of these native perennials from getting established. It's literally just making it so that problem weeds don't start growing. So a quick cover crop with buckwheat, I think, is a really good idea. I highly recommend it. Here you can see it growing around some muley grass that was planted from plugs. Of course, here we've got that snow flurry aster that is planted around, and lots of echinacea. And then over here, you can see the Carex lurida and the pycnanthemum. It's really a great combination. Of course, this is a real east meets west bed because this shrub border I planted 12 years ago from the inventory at Camellia Forest, where I was the grower and propagator, and we specialized in Asian plants. So, you know, this kind of is the border that defines one property from the other. Of course, here at the Carolina Garden House, our Airbnb, I've committed to building these gardens and using only native plants to North Carolina. And I'm really so impressed with how these borders have filled out. I don't know why I just didn't envision it this way, and I'm so pleased. So you can see we have a lot of Carex through this bed. This is Carex muskingamensis. Here we have Phlox paniculata gina, which is a pollinator magnet. Across the front, we have some allium. I think that's Allium cernum. And here we've got some Solidago. Which variety of Solidago? Solidago rugosa. I'm so glad I have things labeled. We also have Itea planted here. This is Love Child from First Editions, which is a great plant. Fothergilla, Spirea alba, which is still blooming. These Liatris are awesome. These were given to me by a local gardening friend, and really just a terrific plant in full bloom. And you can see here's Rhododendron atlanticum and Clethra that are about to flower. And it looks like that one's gonna be pink, which is really exciting. Look at that. And actually this one looks like it's gonna be pink as well. These are all seed grown from Carolina native. And these Viburnum dentatum are awesome because they have seeds. So let me show you here. So thrilled that we have the seed. Now, of course, the birds love to eat this, but I'm tempted to just sow some, because then we could have our own for the backyard. Here we've got American Gold Rush Rudbeckia, which is a really terrific new variety of Rudbeckia. from my friend Brent Horvath at Intrinsic Perennials in Illinois. And this is Cephalanthus, the button bush, yes. And this is Spirea tomentosa. And this was spectacular in flower, but I have to say I really like the seed heads on it as well. Really impressed with these native spireas. I don't understand why all the attention goes to the Asian spirea for breeding. I think that needs to change. Let's see, what else is going on here? Look, one of the milkweeds is getting ready to start flowering. I got this as a 1 gallon from Carolina Native. Actually, everything in this bed predominantly came from Carolina Native. The grasses and sedges came from Hoffman Nursery as landscape plugs, but everything else was either 1 gallon or 3 gallon from Carolina Native. And if you ever have the opportunity to go visit them, it's awesome. They're wholesale, but they also have a garden center. So even if you aren't like a nursery or landscaper, you can still shop there. Now you can see the Schizocarium Scopariums. I did get those from Carolina Native, and they're looking great. You gotta love that like silvery purple foliage. And the oak leaf hydrangea out here, this is also Jetstream, is just starting to bloom. Now that looks like it's been getting nibbled by deer. So I need to put out some deer spray and probably put up a small piece of cattle fence just to prevent those deer from nibbling. I don't think the entire bed needs to be filled with cattle fence, but there's a lot of reason to strategically place it to protect specific plants. Now this side, just got planted a couple of weeks ago with landscape plugs of herbaceous perennials. So, the ground plane in this bed is predominantly grass and sedges. And in this bed, it's predominantly flowering perennials. And, these have only been in a few weeks, so they're not super established. But first, I just want to acknowledge this massive mushroom patch that's growing here at the base of this Spirea alba. And you can see why it's called Spirea alba. It has white flowers. Again, these are from Carolina Native. And I'm so impressed with the berry set of these Aronia Melocarpa Autumn Magic. And this is a black berried form. And I'm really excited to see all this. Now, in the bed itself, it looks like everything is doing great. Of course, we've had a great amount of rain, so there's no reason for everything to not be thriving. The Cephalanthus really suffered because they got very dry. So I'm quite pleased to see how well these are doing now. You can see lots of new growth coming out. That one I basically cut way back, and so it's really reflushing nicely. This Fothergilla looks terrific. I'm sorry, this is not a Fothergilla. This is a Hamamelis. What am I saying? This is a great Hamamelis, a native witch hazel, which I do have a label for. I'm gonna get it right. Virginianum Sunglow. And this is one that actually roots from cuttings. It doesn't have to be grafted, which is really awesome. I saw this at the IPPS meeting in Chattanooga back in 2018. And one of my friends, and my friend Dennis, who gave me the bench, Dennis's bench, he outbid me for it and then gave it to a nursery, and they propagated it, and then they gave me this back. It's, of course, the auction is all for a good cause, for the education of IPPS. Another plant that I saw at that particular IPPS meeting, IPPS is International Plant Propagators Society, is this absolutely fantastic redbud. This is actually one from Dr. Denny Warner, who was a horticulture professor at NC State. He's retired now. But this is from his breeding, and this is Ruby Falls. And I've lost some of his Cercis. Specifically, I lost Flamethrower, but that's because I put it in a bed with bacterial Ralstonia, which is a bacterial infection that I bought from contaminated soil. That was the soil I bought the last time before I started getting everything from Soil Cube. I won't make that mistake again. But I'm really pleased to see that this one is doing great. This is, of course, planted in Level Mix from Soil Cube, which is about to go on sale. And I'm really excited because that's what these beds are made from, is the Level Mix, which is mostly sand. It's 3/4 sand, 1/4 compost. And that really helps keep all of these native plants in check so that they don't grow too fast and flop all over the place, and kind of some plants grow too vigorously and overtake everything. So I think growing in lean soil is really, really critical. That's why the Level Mix is so awesome. It's going to be $35 off using my code BREEGROWS22. Now, speaking of growing in lean soil, this is a bed made entirely of sand. I actually made this bed before I discovered the Level Mix, which is completely ridiculous. I went and bought a couple of yards of just straight sand. So no organic matter whatsoever. Remember, I garden on sand. My native soil, you can see this is from a mole. My native soil basically looks like beach sand. That's what I'm growing in. So in my other garden, it's highly enriched with compost, specifically Soil Cube, and it's wonderful for growing vegetables, but I think it's a little bit too rich for these native perennial mixes because these plants tend to grow from stolons or rhizomes and kind of be a little wild and rambunctious. So in lean soil, they tend to be better behaved. And I can't believe this bed has not been planted a full year yet. I planted this the second week of August last year. And these were all 1 gallon plants from Kavanagh's Perennials, which is a wholesale grower. They sell to garden centers from basically DC to Maine. So you can probably find somebody locally if you live in the mid-Atlantic. And they just have a great quality, or a great selection and really great quality. Obviously fabulous White Swan Echinacea. This is Pycnanthemum. I think that's Tenuifolium virginianum. I don't know. I have these labeled. This might be Pelosa. I'm not sure my labels are accurate, to be honest. I need to spend some time researching it, or really I just need to go visit a nursery that has all these so that I can take pictures and compare. I'm a very visual person. That's how I learn. Solidago, Baptisia, Penstemon, Agastaches. I have quite a few Agastaches in here. I'm really keen on those. You can see that white flowered one there. I'm really keen on these Texas native salvias as well. And I do wish to see more Texas, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia natives being grown for wholesale purposes, because honestly, that's the reality of our climate. Not really growing species native to places that are cooler, but growing natives that are from warmer environments, because, well, I just think that's the direction that we're heading in. It's certainly what the data shows. I like this mix of the Eupatorium and the straight species Echinacea purpurea together. I kind of feel like when you talk about natives, this bed basically is what fills the notch in most people's brains. For me, I like these herbaceous plants, but I don't necessarily like the maintenance of them. So I like woody material. That's why I did these big shrub borders. But I think long term, maintaining the shrub borders is going to be a lot easier than maintaining this, because this still will need to be edited. It'll need to have cutbacks at random times, and I wouldn't necessarily want 3,000 square feet of this. This pocket bed right here is the perfect size, and I think it's high impact, but it meets my maintenance needs. And that's really important when you're building a garden, and particularly when you're growing natives, because just because they're native doesn't mean that you're never going to interact with the plants or the plantings. And you do have to be realistic about what you want to do and then choose the plants based off of their realistic maintenance requirements or their management requirements. I'm standing here because I'm mesmerized with this combination: Echinacea, Agastache, and Pycnanthemum. The Pycnanthemum have all kinds of great pollinators, some of which are just like sleeping. You can see there's like a bee just sleeping inside there. That might not actually be a bee, but a pollinator. If you've been following along with me, you know I was really intimidated about building this bed because I've done maintenance on borders like this in the past, and I was underprepared for what I had committed to. And part of my goal with making these videos is to just be very honest and show you the reality of what I'm growing. And I want to also make sure that I express like the realistic amount of time and energy that you spend on a plant, and or a plant combination or a plant community, which is kind of the buzzword. You know, this is a favorite combination of mine. It's Phlox Bright Eyes, non-native strawberry, some muhly grass, some crabgrass that needs to be weeded out, Phlox paniculata Gina, and then some milkweed with more muhly mixed with other strawberries and nasturtiums that I grew from seed. And I planted this, and at that time I weeded it. So I probably spent 30 minutes. I need to come back through and weed it. That'll take like 3 minutes. And then at the end of the season, we'll actually just break by hand all the phlox stalks off because they break off really easily. And that to me is something that I can say for, you know, under 2 hours a year, you can maintain a foundation landscape that has native plants, has a really practical edible. It has basically year-round interest, and it doesn't, once it's established, it really doesn't need a lot of irrigation. And, you know, thanks to the ground covers, you don't really have a lot of weed pressure. And my goal with these borders here is to be able to use each bed as a slightly different example to demonstrate realistic maintenance of native border, because obviously natives are really important and they're really popular, but I don't see, at least when I peruse, a lot of practical management information. And that is just as important as you planting these things, because if you don't know what to do once they're established and how to deal with them seasonally, it can feel like a really daunting task. So that being said, I hope you will subscribe, because I'll definitely be doing, you know, regular updates from these gardens, and then as we continue to expand into the backyard. And I think there's a lot of information for all of us to learn together on this journey as I establish my first all North American native garden here in Central North Carolina, Zone 7. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you'll be inspired.